All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Leo with the MindBody Marathon. So this is the podcast where we're focused on brain health, biohealth, just trying to get you to live a happier, healthier life. So here on the show with me is my wife, Samua. And also on the show today is none other than Katie Moon. So the last Olympic gold medalist in the pole vault. So we're quite honored to have her here with us today. And she's via StreamYard, via Zoom. And we're going to chat with her a little bit about her season, a little bit about some of the her career and what got her to this level. So Katie, thanks so much for joining us, and we're happy to have you on the show. So
thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so fill us in a little bit about where you're at with the season.
Yeah, so I just opened up my outdoor season. Most of this year I've dealt with Achilles tendinosis, and I really noticed it back in 2022. Okay. And then I had 6 weeks off, so it seemed to go away. Last year, it migrated to my posterior tib, so the inside of my ankle, and I got a PRP injection there. It worked wonderfully. I had no issues with it the rest of the season, but unfortunately, it did go back into the Achilles this year. So I got a PRP injection in beginning of March. And it's just been a long, slow recovery, but I do feel like I finally turned a corner. So I opened up my season at Prefontaine. I was just very rusty. It wasn't the results that I feel like I'm capable of jumping right now. But at the same time, your run has to be so dialed in the pole vault because you take off at ideally the same spot every time. And it really has to come down to, inches of perfection on that run. And so I'm just a little rusty in that sense, but there were a lot of really good things happening. I know that my fitness is good. We just have to get that run dialed in a little bit more, but overall I'm really happy with where I'm at. And so we're just really getting the season started and want to get that ready to go before trials at the end of this month. But,
So which Achilles is it?
It is my left, my takeoff foot.
So it's
the foot that I push off and the foot that I take off of. So
so that's why it's there. I know the Achilles is near and dear to my heart. That's the one that, made me stop running. And then what happened with me is it went also into the post tib, and then it went down into the plantar fascia. So it just kind of migrates all around that area. And still to this day, it's what I'm dealing with a lot. So I can definitely relate.
I do know from your Prefontaine meet just now, you had that awesome photo shoot with Nike. I'm here for all.
They
loved like the new sweat outfit that they had you on. I was like, I want that. So I'm glad that the Achilles did not interfere with your awesome photo shoot.
No, not at all. It's by far the most comfortable thing I've ever worn. No, that's the thing about being a Nike athlete at Prefontaine. They really just go above and beyond. They brought in professional hairstylists and makeup artists and nail artists and just.
Your nails were incredible. Like matching your onesie that I'm sure the Onion will note about later on.
Zooming in so much on that. That's awesome.
And like Brazilian nail techs are just like amazing. Yeah. So I'm always like noticing people's nails.
Oh gosh, it was really fun. And it's nice when you I love fashion. I love that side of what I do. So it's just really fun when you get to.
Didn't you study in Paris?
Yeah, I did a study abroad in Paris for a fashion program. So I love fashion, and
that's
especially
about as fancy as you can sound, right?
Yeah. So I'm super curious, so the timing of that, like how were you able to do that in the middle of being a collegiate athlete or going pro at the level that you're doing? How did that work out?
So it was right after I was supposed to graduate. And when I transferred to Ashland, there was kind of a mix up with my credits. And
always is, right?
Right. So ultimately we figured out that if I went right after the fall after what should have been my senior year, that would finish out my credits. And so it was a 1-month intensive program, English based. I don't know French. I know like a few phrases, but yeah, it was amazing. So it was a month long. We basically created a fashion line and got to see it. We didn't actually bring the clothes into production. But, you know, from beginning to ultimately end, where, you know, you start with the original, just general theme concept, and then you pick the colors and the fabrics, and then you create the designs. And so
how exciting.
It was amazing. So, but yeah, that was really before I kind of got serious into pro vaulting.
Well, okay, so that's another big thing. So what flipped that switch for you? Because you can clearly see it when you look at, you know, your IAAF profile and USATF profile. You can clearly see when that switch happened.
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to pole vault as long as I could. And my senior year of college, I qualified for US Nationals, and that I think I placed 5th, tied for 7th, 5th, somewhere in the middle, where it told me, okay, you're holding your own with the best women in the world. That's exciting, and it shows that I have a lot of potential, because I had gone through a really bad mental block, and just my senior year finally came out of that. And I said to myself, you know, if I can make these kinds of gains and strides in 1 year and be contending with the best women in the world, because it's not just the best women in the US, the US women are some of the best women in the world, you know, then I think I have a shot at this. And so that's after that, I moved down to Knoxville, Tennessee. I wasn't quite ready to be all in the way you need to be. I think I always kind of had one foot out. The coach was great, but I just got homesick.
Down there?
Sorry?
Was it Tim? As you went down there with Tim?
No, actually, I was there. Tim was there, but I worked with Roman Bacharnikov.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was great, but I got homesick, and I started to feel some of those mental block
coming back
feelings. Yeah, and I did not want to get into that again. So I moved back home to work with my Ashland coach and use Roman's training plan. And I did that up through 2016. Didn't make the team, having a good day, and realized, okay, I need to make a total change. So.
Yeah. So back to the block you had. So what were some of the strategies that got you out of that initial block?
To be honest, at the time, it was a change of scenery. I really just needed a totally new environment. I was so deep in the bad habits and the bad thoughts and all of that. So I went to the University of Dayton for 2 years, and I just struggled there for 2 years. And then I transferred to Ashland, and it took a year in that system of, I just kind of repped out really short approach, really small poles, just something I was comfortable with over and over and over again, to where I just got a little sick of it, and I wanted to jump higher more than I was afraid of it. That didn't necessarily fix the core problem, but it did get me out of it at the time. And then really when I tackled it was when I came to work with Brad after the Olympic trials in 2016 didn't go well. I moved out to Washington State to work with my now coach, Brad Walker. And he's really big on the mental side of it, and that you either choose to come down and hit your cues and execute, or you don't. It's just a matter of focusing and telling your body what you want it to do. And I was somebody that was like, no, it's pole vault. It's scary. There's no way. Like, it's not that easy, but it really can be. And I think people tend to overcomplicate it. And it is scary. Don't get me wrong. I'm not immune to it anymore by any means, but I still feel those nerves and a bit of that old anxiety. But teaching me how to focus and how to think on the runway, that was the biggest game changer for that.
Well, to me, that would be interesting because, you know, I sort of see the artist side of you coming out with that, where initially maybe pole vault was this sort of creativity, this sort of thing where it was like less defined and less locked in, and you just needed a coach to sort of just wrangle those thoughts and define it a little bit more for you.
Yeah.
So we have a teenager or 2 teenagers that are high-level athletes. So I have an almost 20-year-old who plays collegiate basketball, and then a 16-year-old daughter who's doing really well in track herself.
Amazing.
And I've noticed, and I don't know if this would be across the board, that it seems like girls tend to be more dramatic with their mental blocks a little bit. Like it's easier for the guy, like with my son, I can just kind of come to him and say like, dude, just like do the work and do this and it's going to come to place, and he can own it. Like he can buy into it and then just do it. Whereas like, and we just had this happen at regionals with our daughter where, you know, like we're like, listen, you need to just get your mind here. You need to get past this. So do you find that to be true? And then like the mental blocks that you were dealing with at that time, like, can you trace them back to like when you were in high school, or just like a little bit different, like go, you know, the perspective of like being a female athlete at that level?
Yeah.
And if so, what tips would you give to the girls coming up behind you?
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely think for me, it's very irrational. There is nothing that happened that really caused my anxiety around it, but I am a very anxious person. As much as I try not to be, I am a high anxiety person. I think I thrive off of that. What I notice is if something kind of stressful happens, or I'll almost like create stressful situations and make it a bigger deal in my mind before major things, so that major competitions, so that when I get there, it's like, okay, I can just vault now. But I definitely make mountains out of molehills, and a lot of it, not just in pole vault, but just, so I think pole vault to me has always been scary. But I will say in high school, when I was younger, I had like the beginnings of that. But I was able to combat it because I think I was in my comfort zone. I was working with the coach that I had always worked with, and then going to college. So I'm in this totally new environment, new coach, new everything. And then it just all blew up. And it was like, I just didn't trust anything about me, my run. I mean, he changed, and fair enough. I'm not attacking the coach, but he changed everything from the way that I grab the pole, pick up the pole, like where because I would always just do this, like that's how you measure your grip. It was just like I put my elbow up, I put my thumb, and he had me starting to do this. Like I would grab it like
Sort of hold.
Yeah, and just everything was new, everything was different, and it was just so much all at once. And because again, I'm an anxiety-ridden person, I tend to go to the irrational things. Like there's no reason that it should have happened, but of course I just blew it up. And once it kind of sinks in, it's really hard to get rid of. And so I've definitely seen guys with run through issues. So, but I do think that women, I'm speaking from my own experience. So I guess this is not all women, because I have definitely met women that are insanely tough and will not run through for anything. Yeah. So yeah, but I know from my experience, I just tend to hold on to the negatives and the anxieties so much more than is necessary. If I have a good practice, it's like, okay, cool, we're back at square one. And I have to have another good practice to continue to think that I'm a good pole vaulter. And one bad practice would derail me. And we're so much better than that now. But I was on this roller coaster every day of having to prove that I was good at this.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a critical point, because I feel like I have this conversation literally daily with athletes where, you know, your confidence does not come from the performance. You have to have confidence before you even perform. Most people will do workouts and then they'll go, oh, I guess I'm fit. No, you need to like be confident, like that you're fit, that you're there, and then do the workout. It's not the other way around. You can't have things prove to you where you're at on the spectrum because of exactly what you're saying. Like, you know, you get to these, you'll have a bad day and then all of a sudden you throw the baby out with the bathwater instead of just kind of meeting your body where it's at and, you know, and just sort of rolling with the punches in that way.
Yes. And that is also something my coaches talked with me a lot about, especially when I first got there, is the difference between real confidence and fake confidence. And ultimately what he meant by that is I had a lot of fake confidence where if I felt good, if conditions were good, if I had a lot of adrenaline, I had to really hype myself up to jump well. Things had to be going really well. And then, you know, like I used to have to get a tap every single jump where he would literally stand there and kind of push my back as I would come through to take off the ground. And that's a crutch, right? And so there's a time and a place for that. But if you need that every single time, that's not real confidence. Real confidence is showing up, putting in the work, and on any given day, I can come down and hit a takeoff no matter what.
Yeah.
And that he really broke those old bad habits, like getting a tap every jump, which was a struggle. It was not easy. There were a lot of tears. There was a lot of like fighting, but I ultimately trusted him and really bought into what he was telling me because it made sense. It simplified it. It showed me like a roadmap to how I was going to be great instead of just thinking I could be one day. And so that is the difference. Is like, there is a difference between real confidence and fake confidence.
That's genius. And I'm going to have to steal that from him because of how simple that is. But I feel like this is one of the biggest conversations I have with, and you know how it is in the state of Ohio. We're heading, it's a very competitive state with track. We're heading into states this weekend. And it's like, all these high school kids and all these college kids that are kind of hitting that next level. I'm just having to talk them off so many ledges.
Yeah. And that's the thing at this point. It's like, you've put in the work, and that's the advice that I give the kids is come in every day just with intention, and let it be fun, have fun with it. But I wish that was something that I had learned at a young age, is the way that you practice is the way that you compete. And so when I am in practice now, every single jump, I am focusing, I'm cueing, I am telling my body exactly what I want it to do from every approach, whether it's like a straight pole drill or my full approach. I'm really focusing, just full mind body connection. And then when I get to a meet and there is adrenaline and anxiety and high pressure, I feel those nerves, but I'm able to like channel those thoughts into execution as opposed to just feeling everything. And that's when the mind can go to all the negative things that can happen. So if you just hyper focus on executing, telling your body what you want it to do, that's what's going to lead to results in a meet.
So with doing that, like you're saying, like just being focused as you're doing at practice and then being able to repeat that at the meets, do you do like meditation or the visualization, breathing? Like what kind of techniques have you brought into that, like tangibly, to be able to repeat that every time?
I guess it's my version of visualization. I don't do a ton of meditating, but what I like to do, again, I talked about the run earlier and how consistent it needs to be. We'll do a lot of pole runs where I literally run down the track with my pole in the exact same way I would if I was on the runway jumping into a pit, but I plant and then I run out of it. But I really try to make that the exact same every time. And then what I'll do at home, because there's a very specific rhythm for me, there's a very specific feeling. It's not just going out and sprinting. There's a very specific rhythm to it. So when I'm home, I will think about that rhythm. I will stand there and I'll just 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I'll throw my hands up on one. And so that's my version of visualizing. And for me, if the run can be consistent, the rest of it kind of happens. So I think it's going to be a little different for everybody, what works for them. But for me, it really has been just even mentally dialing in the run and the rhythm of that. So that's my version of it. But really, when I'm home, I try to get away from it completely. I focus as best I can there. And then when I'm home, I really will try to just.
Yeah, that's good. I like that you do that. You separate kind of that work and play sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't get me wrong. Like I said, I will definitely do that visualization. Especially if I'm in a place like where I'm at right now, where I'm just a little inconsistent with it. But when I'm dialed in, I really just try to, when I'm away from the track, be away from the track. And then when I'm on the track, I am totally present there.
You alluded to this a little bit earlier, talking about the crowd. How was it in Tokyo with no crowd?
It was different, but at the same time, we had been, again, this goes back to real confidence over fake confidence. My coach taught me how to really hit a takeoff and execute when no one is there at practice. And then we would compete at local high school meets with no one there. And throughout the year, we had competed in stadiums that didn't have a crowd. So we got kind of used to that. But to me, it didn't matter. I think in some ways it probably helped me because I think other athletes really thrive with the crowd. But with that being said, when we had a crowd in especially Budapest, because we were in Eugene in 2022, and that was amazing, home crowd. Budapest, though, the stadium was completely sold out. And when Nina and I were going back and forth, which ultimately ended
the
in
one
us.
where you guys decided to tie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we were going bar for bar, matching each other, and there were no races going on, the entire stadium was watching us. And it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Like the electricity of that crowd was just unmatched. So I wish we had that in Tokyo, but at the same time, I can't wish anything different about Tokyo because it was the exact outcome I wanted.
Yep.
But I'm very excited for Paris, knock on wood, hopefully I make it. But if all goes well and I'm there, my family will get to come, and that would be.
So how does the crowd interact? So that meet that you mentioned where you guys are going back and forth and the crowd was only watching you and there's not all the other events taking place. Because, for a race, it's like that last 30, 40 meters, like everybody just goes crazy, right? Because it comes down to the wire. So at pole vault, at what point? Because are they quiet while you're running? Are they cheering while you're running, but then quiet as you're taking off? When do they go crazy for you?
It depends. When you make the bar, the whole stadium just erupts, and that was insane. But you can also ask for a clap, and the crowd will get into that.
As you're taking off running.
Yeah. So when you stand there, you can ask for a slow clap, and then the crowd can get into that. So it just depends on the meet on the day. I like slow claps. I don't like asking for them. So if that starts, that's great. I can't remember if we had a slow clap, but the crowd was definitely getting into it, and we could feel the attention on us, but it was more after we cleared the bar and the stadium erupted that was like, oh, this is cool.
I highly encourage people that are listening to go back and watch that on YouTube. That was one of the most electric pole vaulting competitions you can imagine.
It was very fun.
Well, give us a day in the life of Katie with now that we're kind of heading towards the trials and it's kind of starting to ramp up training. What's a day of training like for you?
It's actually very boring. Everybody talks about how exciting my life must be, but my day-to-day is just, I go to the track, I do my workout, I am tired and exhausted. I maybe go to the gym, and then I come home and I sit on my couch and I watch TV, and I read, or it's very basic. And I'm a big advocate for when I'm resting, I am doing that to the fullest. So on my rest days, I will practically crawl down my stairs to my couch and just sit there all day long. It's obviously barring therapy and whatnot, but so yeah, right now, because of the tendinosis, we've really had to modify things in a way that I don't love, but my lifting is, I normally would have vaulting twice a week, lifting 3 times a week with a sprint session without a pole, just full on sprinting, thrown in once or twice. And we alternate hard days and easy days. So Monday would be vault and lift, and that's a long, heavy day. But then Tuesday is going to be active recovery, bike, stretch, easy. Wednesday will be sprint and lift. Thursday will be off completely, therapy, whatever you need. Friday, vault and lift. Saturday, some longer runs to just kind of run the week out. And then Sunday's off again. So we really just alternate this pounding on the body and then easier on the body, which as a whole, I'm 32 and this is the first real chronic issue that I've had. So I feel very fortunate. And that's why I can't get too hard on myself, because it's inevitable. Every athlete gets there at some point. And I've been able to go this long without something really keeping me out. I mean, that it is what it is. But this year, because of the injury, what I would find is that I could vault and lift, but then I couldn't push on it for another 4 days.
Okay.
And so we're just not getting the volume from a running standpoint, but I am still doing bike workouts. I'm lifting a lot. My lifting is heavier than ever. My vaulting, when I'm able to jump, is going very well. And even in Eugene, our poles vary in how stiff they are and how long they are. I was one pole down from my personal best pole. So we're right where, even with the run being inconsistent. So it's frustrating, but it is like, I'm right there and I know that. So it's, like I said, not the training we would want for an Olympic year, just from a volume standpoint, especially with ground contact. But it is what it is. You got to modify as you
I
need.
remember years ago, well, this would have been 2020 for the marathon trials. I talked to Bernard right before he ran the marathon trials. And I was like, what is your training volume? Both him and Abdi were there and we were chatting about this. I was like, now that you guys are older, like, what is your training like now relative to 10 years ago when you were setting American records? And it was interesting. They both said that they train the same number of hours in a day, but they actually run less volume and they are running farther distances. And they're like, as you age, there's more that just goes into getting you to the line healthy. And that's so interesting to think about, because so many times as you're obviously older and more experienced, but so many times you kind of develop this mindset where, you need to keep working at the level that you were previously working. So it's one of those things where you're kind of finding this new sort of rhythm. Obviously the injury is sort of kind of throwing a wrench in it, but in the end, it's kind of the normal trajectory for a career of a track athlete.
Yes. And what's interesting is my coach with pole vault, because it's so technical, you just spend years harnessing that and you need reps on the runway and actually vaulting. But he's made it clear, and I agree with this, that the longer I've been vaulting and doing what he wants me to do, the less vaulting I actually need to do to get in that shape, so to say. And so as long as I'm lifting, as long as I'm sprinting, I don't need quite as many reps on the runway. I obviously still need them for, again, consistency in the run. But as far as like the technique, once I'm in the air, we've pretty much dialed that in. So I keep saying that phrase, but but yeah, so I agree that it's just, I think that's a testament of a good coach as well, is just being able to adapt and modify. And as I get older, we're trying new things that we think will get me to the meets healthy, but still getting in that good work. And yeah, every year is going to look a little different. And that's just the reality of it. I don't think I've ever had a season that's gone to plan, ever.
Yeah. Well, that's another important point. You've gone you've had a great 10 years of staying healthy and competing at a very high level. I mean, what's the secret there of staying healthy?
Just listening to your body. I know that sounds easier said than done, but truly, when I feel something that feels wrong, and there's a difference, because we push ourselves. There are weeks where I am dragging, but there's a difference between just being tired and not wanting to do something versus this feels wrong. If I push through this, I don't think that's right. And I always err on the side of caution. My coach definitely likes to push a little bit more. And I think we've kind of married these two perfectly, where I'm overly cautious with my body, and he explaining what I'm feeling. He knows, okay, let's hop on a bike today instead of pounding on it, or just, no, well, you're fine. You can get through this. So I really think I made the joke once, and now I'm just sticking to this. Like I'm an achiever. I am not an overachiever. I'm not an underachiever. I'm simply an achiever. What is on the paper, I will do. Whatever he writes down, I will do, but I will not do one thing more. I will never go above and beyond with like extra reps, extra sets of anything. And that's part of it, is I think that has really helped me to stay on my rest days. I am on my couch. I'm not out running all these errands. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I do, and I'll go hang out with friends and stuff. But for the most part, I really utilize that rest. And I am very much just doing exactly what I'm supposed to and nothing more.
And that's the thing, that's coming back to the original concept that we kind of alluded to earlier of just being available. You're just getting yourself to the point where, you're just managing yourself on a day-to-day basis so that you are available for those hard sessions, you're available for the meets, and, not going above and beyond from that perspective.
And a big part of it is therapy. I am really diligent about I get massage, I get chiro. Obviously now I'm getting a whole lot more, but even before that, I would get I would get good deep tissue work at least every other week, if not once a week. I would go see, my coach is now chiropractor. He was in school while I, the last couple years. So he was able to help me with a lot of things, but I had access to good chiropractic work. So it really, that is a huge part of it, because prehab is better than rehab. And I definitely always wanted to make sure I was in front of things. So
I know, it's so funny. Like, I'll have patients come in and they'll be like, "Oh, my hip's feeling better." I'm like, "Great. Now the fun begins. Now we get to feed you. Now we get to get you prehab it. Now we get to kind of work on your weaknesses and really improve the system." So
a lot of people have the mindset of being treated only when they're injured.
Yep.
Versus being treated to avoid the injury, or even being treated to like maximize your performance and improve, like take you that little extra line, above the line of where your performance can go.
Well, that's one of the secrets of USATF. That's one of the things that I love working with that organization, is they put a heavy emphasis on performance treatment.
Yes. And we get stipends for treatment. And that is, that's the thing. I know it can be expensive. And I thankfully, I'm able to turn in a lot of those receipts and get reimbursed for that. And so I understand, for some people, they just genuinely can't afford it all the time. But then you need to be at home rolling out, being really diligent about your stretching, get some exercises that, from a therapist, and just do what you can.
So I want to touch back when you were just talking about like modifying your training and things like that. And you kind of kept touching upon like when you come, just the technique of everything and being in the air. And you kind of mentioned being in the air a few times. And that just made me think, like, even as a high schooler getting into pole vaulting, which I'm curious as to how that even happened, because anytime that you mention pole vaulting to any high school girl, even ones that have done gymnastics and dance and can get over that bar, like I said, my daughter included, they're always like, "Oh God, no," because it seems so overwhelming, the technique of it. But also, like, to the spectator, it looks like you're going so high and you're so vulnerable. So like, how do you get over that fear of like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to like fall right here and like crack my back or something"?
Yeah, it was more, when I started, I was 12 years old. I had no fear. I just saw them doing it. And
You just thought you were invincible back then.
Oh, 100%. And I was always doing things that, one, stressed my mom out, and two, put me in some sort of danger with adrenaline. For example, I tried to flip off a regulation size soccer goal. I tried to do a penny drop and just came straight down and dislocated my wrist. This was literally 20 minutes after my mom told me to stop climbing on the light post because she didn't want to take me to the emergency room. And then I walk up with my wrist like, so I loved anything. I was a gymnast. I loved anything involving climbing on things, upper body strength, and adrenaline. And so pole vault really was perfect. And I saw the older kids doing it, and I begged my coaches for days to let me go try it. They were hesitant. I think they didn't want to deal with pole vaulting at that point. For women, it had only been in the Olympics for 4 years. So let alone a middle school girl trying it, it just wasn't very common. But I wouldn't really take no for an answer. And I'm very annoying when I want to be, and even when I don't want to be. And so they let me go over and try it. And when you first start, you are gripping so low. You're halfway down the pole. You're not bending it. You're basically just long jumping into the pit. But I loved it. I loved kind of pulling myself up and over. And I was straight pulling it, which is what we call when you literally don't bend it, until probably sophomore year of high school. And I started when I was in 7th grade. So 4 years of just jumping with a straight pole, trying to get
it's
up
like
over.
medieval times where they're going over the walls and stuff. Like,
yeah, really, it was very much like that. So you just work your way up so slowly that I think it takes time to realize what you're actually doing. And I think that's where my mental block came in, was I started to realize, if I mess this up, it's super dangerous. And it was, again, irrational in the sense that I had never, what was that?
Ignorance was bliss at the beginning.
Exactly. So I just, it was one of those things where I loved it, but then I started to realize what I was doing. And even though there wasn't a reason exactly that I was becoming afraid of it. I didn't have a crash. I didn't fall, nothing like that. But I just think reality sunk in a little bit. And I talked about how my coach taught me how to think on the runway. I was so blank minded, and I would just pick up the pole, run as fast as I could, and kind of hope for the best. And that's a very scary way to pole vault when you're not really in control, when the pole is more in control than you are. So it made sense why I was so afraid of it. But yeah, we've gotten better at that.
That's good. Well, as we are sort of rounding third here on the episode, can you give us any insight into a little bit more on your lifestyle with modalities and some of the things you do on a daily basis, like maybe like sauna work or cold plunges or anything like that, or even some insight into your diet?
Yeah. First of all, I hate being hot. So saunas are the bane of my existence. If I'm being completely honest, I know they're great. My coach loves them. He always tries to get me to go in. I like contrast. Right now I'm doing a lot of icing on my foot in particular. And I asked, is contrast better? Is icing better? And the doctor that I started working with a couple weeks ago said icing would be better for it. I love the compression boots. I have a pair of those, and I use those the day before I jump. I think just the extra blood flow coming through.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I am not great at home therapy, which is why I'm so diligent about going out and getting it elsewhere. Yes. I would much rather lie on a table and have someone, put an elbow into my hamstring than me try to balance on a foam roller.
I'm like his worst patient, and I should be like the best, right? But it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, I will. And then he knows I don't, but at least he's gracious about it.
Yeah. So I also really like dry needling. If I have a muscle that's just so tight and it's not releasing from the pressure, I will get that done. I like cupping. I do have a cupping set here. So when I feel like something's tight, I have a Theragun. Well, again, when I'm home and then a spot's just really tight, I can get in there that way. It's like I said, I'm not great at the at-home stuff, but I do have the things here that I need in case. But again,
you named like 5 things you do at home. I think
that's yeah, it's more like a need basis again, because I don't want to overdo anything either. And now that my coach is he has his license and everything, he gets me on his table often for a lot of practices just to make sure everything's good and in alignment. And that's something that I found as well, is just with what I do, it's so lopsided and jarring that if I am a little off, that's when I notice things tighten up. And so I think that's been a really good prehab for me as well, just to make sure things are where they need to be. And with the Achilles, we just realized I started working with a guy a couple weeks ago. His name is Justin Whitaker. He's with Nike. He's just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And he realized that it's mostly just the bursa. The Achilles is perfectly intact, but it's just so mad around it. But I was super locked up in a way that was just pinching on it every single step and run, and was able to just get it to neutral ultimately. And then my coach could continue that. So I have a variety of things, but again, I really just like to put that on other people.
I think that's smart, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's smart to you're a professional, right? You're a professional track athlete. You're not a professional physician. So let them do the work. I think that's great.
Exactly. Because a lot of times what you're feeling is not where the issue is stemming from. Mm-hmm. Yep. 9 times out of 10, if my Achilles is tight, it's because my calf is tight. It's not stemming from the issue. The issue is not where you're feeling it. It's usually coming from somewhere else. So, and then as far as diet, I was diagnosed celiac last year. So my diet completely changed. For those that don't know celiac, that just means I have to be completely gluten-free. Gluten is in all the fun things. Yeah, all the fun things. So
I went gluten-free with her a few years ago, and it was so much harder before, so it's a lot easier now.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was funny. I didn't realize I was sick. My brother was celiac and he was sick. Like he was gray in the face. He was just so thin, and he just wasn't absorbing any nutrients. I didn't think I was sick, but I went in for something unrelated, told them my brother was celiac, my grandpa celiac. They're like, why don't we test you? I'm like, do we have to? Because I'd rather not know. I won the Olympics being, with gluten diet, so maybe it's not so bad. But funny enough, I feel amazing. I didn't think I felt bad, but when you keep eating something that your body can't process, you don't realize how bad you feel if that's your norm. So I eliminated that, and now I feel amazing, and it's actually not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. No, I think I went gluten-free, not because I needed to for celiac or anything, but by choice in 2008 when I was actually at Life down in Atlanta. Yeah. And I was at a sports seminar, and then the guy that was talking was going through all this reason as to why people should eliminate gluten in their diet. And I was like, all right, well, let me just try it. And I realized like, oh my God, my brain is like operating at a higher level. I feel like I was thinking more clearly and all that stuff. And so I've been gluten-free ever since. And the early days in the 2000s were hard.
They were hard. But let me tell you, we went to Paris in 2019, and my brother lives in Luxembourg, and he kept teasing us, because we're going to Paris, right? Land of the baguettes and everything else. It's like, you guys will be gluten-free there. Good luck with that. There were so many bakeries, and not even like in some like fancy like main area, like some of the little offshoot neighborhoods. There were so many bakeries that had like even 100% gluten-free stuff. So Google it, just on Google Maps, we would find it. And they were delicious, like amazing.
Yeah, you don't have to compromise taste.
Gluten-free. It was amazing. So know that you can have a phenomenal time in Paris eating everything that Paris is known for, even being gluten-free.
Well, what's interesting too is the gluten, and I've researched this a little bit. I say research, I Googled it. Yeah. The gluten in Europe is different than in the US. 100%. And people don't have reactions in Europe the way we do here. And
it has to do with glyphosate. It has to do with Roundup, that we don't have any restrictions on the amount of glyphosate we can put on our wheat.
Yep.
And most European countries do.
Yep.
And on average, the farmers will spray it 3 times because it's easier on the combines. So you basically get Roundup and glyphosate so much more on our products in the US. And that's the main reason.
That was kind of my coach's theory on it. And I agree. I'm like, that makes so much sense. That makes all the sense in the world.
That's good you figured that out too, because I think that'll help with the repairing of the tendon and all the little micro injuries. And, it can be another inflection point in your career, really.
Definitely. I hope so anyways. So it's, like I said, it's been a total transition, but at the same time, not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. There's still plenty that I can have that's really good. So I'm okay. It just gets annoying when I go to a restaurant and have to ask for a gluten-free menu, or when my friends all go out to eat and I'm the one that has to choose the restaurant. And I hate being that person because I'm the least pickiest eater as a whole. I will eat anything and everything. And now, of course, I have to be the most dramatic about it. Awesome.
All right. Well, as we kind of come to a close, is there any last parting words or advice you want to give out, or any other suggestions?
No, I mean, I think I kind of hit on it earlier, just for any young athletes, obviously have so much fun falling in love with the sport. But if you come in and you every day just stay intentional with your thoughts, and if you're pole vaulting, when you're on the runway actually vaulting, or just doing drills or doing lifts, just stay really focused on those execution points and exactly how you want to execute. And this goes not just for pole vault, but for any athlete. The more mentally present you are and focus the way that you want to, that will carry over into the high pressure situations, and you'll be able to control your body when the pressure is on. So that's my biggest piece of advice.
I really feel like that's a great piece of advice, because, you go to a typical track meet and you see all the kids on their phone, they sit down their phone and they go warm up, and then they're still distracted from all that. And it's like, you gotta get your mind right,
Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, I'm on my phone so much, but but when I'm at practice, I really don't pull my phone out much at all, if at all. It's more to check the time. If I get a message, I'll message back later.
Yeah.
So next week you're home because you're having that awesome pole vault meet that you put together at your high school.
Yep.
So you're looking forward to that, I'm sure.
Oh
You're
my
going to show
God.
these lovely ladies all the awesome things about Cleveland.
So much. Well, to be honest, because it's so close to trials, I really think it's going to be come in vault.
Yeah.
We'll have like a get together at my house afterwards, like a bonfire type of vibes. But
Yeah.
that's kind of it. Again, when we're so close to trials, it's just
that makes sense.
Everybody starts to get really focused, but it should be a really good time. I'm so excited. I just really want to show Olmsted Falls what they helped create, because there's no medals for me without the support that they have shown me, and just the foundation of support. Growing up, I never felt like I couldn't do something because I was a girl or because I was a track athlete. I was celebrated at every stage of my career. And so much of that goes back to Olmsted Falls. And so just having that internal foundation of support, even when I was struggling later in my career, I knew the people back home were rooting for me. And also just didn't like, if I had a bad day, they didn't care. It was just more that they wanted me to do well because they care. And so I really want to show them, what I want to show the kids what's possible if you just work hard. I started when I was 12. I'm 24 now. So it took a very long time. I'm sorry, I'm not 24. What am I saying? It's 2024. I started when I was 12. I'm now 32. Glad I can do math. Good thing I didn't get a job in anything mathematics. But yeah, I just want to show people what hard work can accomplish, and how much I appreciate their support, and just give the girls in the sport an awesome opportunity to hit standard and have fun. So
that is just awesome that you're doing that and giving back to the community and really recognizing where you came from. And I think it'll serve also as a dual principle to inspire you kind of moving forward for the rest of the month of June and making some new things there. So
hope so. I feel like we're close. I'll go to Chula Vista sorry?
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'll do one more meet before that to try and get a little bit more ready for that meet. Because I do want to go there and jump something high for them. I think that would be incredibly special to do it on the track I started on. So we'll go to Chula Vista at the training center and have a meet there this coming weekend. Then we'll go to Cleveland. Hopefully by then I'll have it kind of figured out and we can just keep, I don't want to say cruise control, but just not stress as much going into trials. But
yeah,
it's inevitable. Stress is going to happen in an Olympic year. So
yeah. Well, I think this is a great time to sort of wrap up. And we wish you the best in the next coming meets. I think Chula is going to be great, and we'll be out there helping you, cheering you on at Olmsted, and then I'll be out at the trials doing the same. So
awesome! Thanks
you so much for being on the show with us, and you've taught us and our listeners a lot. And so thanks again. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you so much. I always love following you on your social media and all the different, not just like the athlete side of you, but all the other sides of you that come out on that, and love just being a fan from afar. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
All right. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thanks.